Hello, thanks for visiting our channel and welcome to this new video. Well, I've been sent this data in a tabular form in a PDF format, and I'm expected to create email accounts and upload them onto Google Admin Console, creating loads of Google accounts. Do you think I can do this? Let's go and find out. We are looking at the scenario of receiving a PDF file. This is generally the case that these files get generated from other programs. In this case, you can see that we have 4 sets of information. There is first name, last name, year group, and the form groups. We can note here that the first names are all in small letters, whereas the surnames are shown in capital letters. Then we got year groups, which are different year groups, and the form groups, name of the different classes. This information from this PDF file needs to come onto this Excel file, which we downloaded from the Google Admin Console. And it has lots of different columns, but out of those there are 5 important columns which needs to be populated here for this bulk update or upload of email accounts. Although these files have many other columns, but these 5 columns are needed for the bulk upload of email accounts. Where did I got this file from? In order to get this file, you will have to go onto your Google admin account onto the internet. So you will log on to your Google admin account. Once you log in, you're going to come up to this dashboard, and when you go into users, you will see all of different users on your dashboard, different organizational unit, and this is that bulk upload of user. That's the file where you're going to get this file to be downloaded from. And when you click this download blank CSV template, this is going to give you that template which has the required field that is needed to bring back here and upload. So we're going to be using attached CSV file. When we are done with this file, we come back here, and once we have populated this file, we can come back and do all of this update there. Going back onto our PDF, we can see we got different scenarios here. All of this information, however, needs to come up here, bar this organizational unit, which we're going to manually key in. I have now made another a blank Excel file just to go through different scenario of making up this file. As we can see that when we are creating email accounts onto Google, it requires the name, first name, last name of the user, which needs to come from this PDF file. As we can see, this is all in small letters. If I just copy and paste, if I try to just copy and paste this data from this PDF file and bring it back onto this Excel file here and paste it, we can see all of this data, all that set of information from the PDF gets copied into one single column. But that's not how we want this data onto this file. It needs to be separated. It in fact requires to go into all these 4 different columns. Now in order to do this, if we just copy and paste, we will have to do an extra bit in Excel. We will go into data, and then we're going to select this text to column option here. Once we click on text to column option, we are given a certain scenario, and here is our data. If we use the delimited one, which is selected on the top, we can see our data will look like as it is shown underneath there. If I go next, I can see that I have many other options, and here is my data. I can see in my data that they are separated by a small space, so I can use this option of space here within the filtering so that we can filter this data and can put this into different columns. When I press on space, looking at my data, you can see that in this case most of my data has been properly separated. Using this option, when you go through rest of your data, there may be some housekeeping that you may have to do, but in most of this data it has worked out very well. If on the other hand, if I select the fixed width option and I try and work with this method, you can see that it is now going to give me an option to try and put a column. And when I try to put in between the space that is available, it might work for some rows, but in other cases, in most of this case, in my scenario, it is not going to work very well for us. So when I go through my data, I can see in some of those rows are not justified, they are not separating the column very well. So I will have to do a lot of housekeeping if I select this method, and it may not work very well for me. So I'm going to go back onto this space method, and in this case all of my data will properly be displayed. It can be copied across, and when I go through my data, it seems to have worked very well for the rest of the data. And when I press finish, it is going to give me an option to where do you want the data to go. Obviously in this case I want the data to appear in B2, and when I do this, that's how you can see that the data is now comparatively properly displayed. There will be a little bit of housekeeping to do. I will have to separate these columns. I have to copy and paste, but in most of this case the data has been properly organized. Now when I come back onto the second row, I will have to just copy and paste, shift this data across onto the proper columns, and have to do a little bit of housekeeping to get this data in order. Right, on the Excel sheet, when we come on to the year groups, we do not require the word year to appear everywhere on the column. So we can delete this because the actual Google sheet requires the name or the number, which year group you are in. Just the numbers are required for the data to be moved into the proper container. So I'm going to cut this data from this column E and paste it back onto column D. And here the form groups, same thing, cut and paste, will now organize this data in the way that we want it. So now we have all of our data organized in the way properly in which we have our first name, last name, year groups in the shape of numbers only, and our form groups are all shown over there. There is another way of organizing this data and bringing this data back into Excel, a bit more easier method. For this we have to download a software, and that software is Foxit Reader. It is another PDF reader. It's a free download for the if you are just using the reader version of it. So we are installing onto the Windows version. So I'm going to select Windows, download this file, Once you download this file, you will need to install it. So I'm going to quickly install this file, or quickly install this software. Now there is a reason why we are using this Fox's Reader, is because when we open PDFs in this, when we are reading the PDF through this program, we are able to save this file back as a text file. So here's our data PDF file again. We do not need to do anything else here. We have opened this file. We are just going to save this file, and we're going to try and save this file as a text file. So I'm going to try and save it onto the desktop. Not saving it as PDF, but we are going to try and select the option of saving this as a text file. Now this file has been saved onto the desktop. If I open this file now, you can see the same text file has not been, the formatting here is much better, and the distance between these columns, it has kept those distance, and the formatting is available. Now when I copy this, when I bring this back into Excel, so now this time, once we got this text file, we're going to be using as file, we're going to try and open this file as a text file. So we're going to go back into data, and now I'm going to try and open the file from a text file. This is the option is Excel. We're going to go and locate our file, and once we import it, I come back to that text import wizard, and in this case, now if I go back and select the fix width option onto this, you can see now, since our data has quite a lot of space, I have more of a option of organizing the columns the way that I want it. So now using this option is much more worthwhile, as it not a lot of housekeeping will need doing in this case, and I can manually adjust the width of the columns. So if I go through the rest of my data, I can see that most of my data, all of my data will be fine, and I can now paste this file into a blank sheet just to see how it will look. And when I paste this file now, you can see that the file has totally come through the way that I want it. It has properly been formatted, and it is in the proper column, and there's not a lot I will need to do here other than just changing the year groups and taking out the word YR in this year group column, and rest of the data is just fine. So I can just do this work here, copy this data and paste it back onto my other Excel sheet. So this now concludes how we can bring data from a PDF into Excel using a couple of scenarios, couple of different ways in which we can bring back the formatting so that we don't have to do a lot of work. So in the next section, we're going to start working on our Excel file, depending on different scenarios that we may have in the organization, how we want our first name to appear, our surnames to appear, and creating different emails accounts. So we're going to go back onto that email, onto that section of our work.